Yesterday, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, with plenty of support from Sarah Palin, headlined a march to protest the federal government's closure of the World War II memorial. Now, the memorial is shut down, we should note, because the government is shut down. And the government is shut down because Senators Cruz and Lee worked tirelessly for months to make it so. No matter how disingenuously, channeling the raw anger and alienation of the Tea Party base is what Cruz and company do best.
This is the wire our commander-in-chief put up here to prevent you from being here today. Is anybody worried about this wire?
No! Will we surrender our freedom?
No! God bless Ted Cruz and Mike Lee.
Our veterans should be above politics.
You look around, though, and you see these barricades. This is a matter of shutdown priorities.
To understand the political spectacle at this weekend's Million Vet March, you have to go back 2 weeks, when Republicans shut down the government, furloughing hundreds of thousands of government workers, including many of the park rangers who patrol our war memorials. You may remember one Republican personally berated a park ranger for the shutdown he helped cause.
Park Service should be ashamed of these things.
I'm not ashamed.
Well, you should be.
And the circus was on. Republicans and their allies tried to sell closing of the World War II memorial as an evil Obama plot.
They want to make sure that World War II veterans get shut out.
To put up barricades to keep them away from their greatest accomplishments is an absolute sin.
It's un-American and it's despicable.
And all this political theater was to force the president's hand to delay or defund his health care law. It didn't happen. It's not going to happen. And that brings us back to yesterday.
We will not be timid in calling out any who would use our military, our vets, as pawns in a political game.
Yesterday, somewhere between hundreds and thousands of people descended on the mall to stage a protest against the closing of the war memorials, and it turned into something that looked a lot more like a Tea Party town hall.
We want him to come here and apologize for the treatment of our veterans.
The speaker succeeded in whipping up the crowd around a variety of conservative conspiracies.
How dare you commit an atrocity on combat veterans' families?
Indict for Benghazi!
Is anybody worried about this wire?
No!
It was a protest of the shutdown headlined by the two senators who are most responsible for the shutdown.
Are we going to let them shut us out of what is rightfully ours?
No!
Why is the federal government spending money to erect barricades to keep veterans out of this memorial?
Republican Congressman Steve Stockman, who previously accused Democrats of curb-stomping veterans because Obama told them to, led the crowd in a chant.
Tear down the wall! Tear down the wall! Tear down the wall!
And finally, there was the ugliest moment of the day from Larry Klayman of the conservative group Freedom Watch.
We are now ruled, quote unquote, by a president who bows down to Allah. I call upon all of you to wage a second American nonviolent revolution. Demand that this president leave town, to get out, to put the Quran down, to get up off his knees, and to figuratively come up with his hands out.
After that, protesters carried barricades to the White House and camped out with a huge Confederate flag outside the residence of the first black family to live in it.
Also, apparently just after Senator Ted Cruz told the crowd the president was using military veterans as, quote, pawns, he and his colleague Mike Lee left the protest. And the original organizers of the event may have felt like the protest had been co-opted by the Tea Party. On their website, the group states, "We feel disheartened that some would seek to hijack the narrative for political gain. The core principle is all about honoring America's veterans in a peaceful and apolitical manner." Joining me now is Robert George, editorial writer for the New York Post and former aide to Republican Newt Gingrich, Michelle Goldberg, my colleague at The Nation magazine, where she's just joined as a senior contributing writer, and Josh Barrow, politics editor for Business Insider. Robert, I mean, who could have predicted that with Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz and Mike Lee there, that things would get political?
I'm shocked. I'm simply shocked. Well, what I found was most interesting about this entire scenario is Ted Cruz, who seems to be despised by most of the Senate, with the possible exception of Mike Lee. Well, obviously, with the exception of Mike Lee, he's clearly become sort of the leader of the Tea Party movement, and even even though he's only been in office for about 9 months, if he really wants to take that leadership and then use it as a springboard to 2016, he's going to have to be more careful about what kind of groups that he decides to start associating with himself. Yeah, exactly.
You don't think sharing a microphone with a guy who says that the president needs to put down the Quran and come out with his hands
you've got this guy Larry Klayman, who's sort of like the ghost of Democratic obsession past. I mean, he was big back in '98 when he was leading Judicial Watch as part of the whole impeachment stuff, and then he had a falling out with Judicial Watch because apparently Judicial Watch thought that he was a little bit too nutty even for them, and so now he's somehow crawled out of the woodwork and is attaching himself to these things. So I mean, if Ted Cruz wants to be the head of the Tea Party and write it to Iowa and so forth, he can do that, but he's going to have to figure out a way of making clear he's the leader, and you're not going to have all these nutballs attaching themselves to him.
All right, I want to read this tweet from our friend and Tim Carney, who is often on the show, conservative guy I have a lot of respect for. He says, "Give liberals this: they figured out the one clown with a Confederate flag on Pennsylvania Avenue is the true leader of American conservatism." Is it fair to take that iconic photo of a Confederate flag at this protest outside the White House and blow it up and say this represents something deep and dark about what's going on here? Hold your thought. We're going to be right back. I want you to answer when we come back.